One of my favorite things to photograph is a lighthouse, because a lighthouse, I'll probably post one tomorrow, one of the ones I took on the Oregon coast, don't know where, but it's one of the, I post it from time to time because Jesus commands us to be the light of the world. And if our light goes out, then great is the darkness, but the smallest flicker. My prayer is that that which Greg obviously wrote under the inspiration of the Lord would be something that triggers something in everyone, because here's where we're at tonight. And I want to make this clear. Very seldom do I post a story and then return it to the top. I just did that. If you want to see the story I'm referring to, the end game is here. America surrenders militarily while preparing for war against U.S. citizens. It's important to understand just the basics of radiation. When Fukushima went off, and I believe that was was not an accident, it was an intentional, basically literal neutron flux. If you don't understand what neutron flux is, it's a science fiction term, but it really exists. Something caused that reactor to explode. Something caused that earthquake to take place. And the fact is that now the entire Pacific is poisoned with radiation levels that every nuclear book, every nuclear reference book, when you read the amount of contamination that's deadly for humans, it's off the charts. So while everything is killing us softly with the song of the sirens of the lying devils in the mainstream media, lying devils from the siren song in the mainstream media, there are glimpses of reality. And I want to share one thing. I'm excerpting this. Doug, do you remember, Joe, do you remember, and I know, Greg, you remember, when the DHS ordered up the targets of a little boy with a real gun, a pregnant woman, little kids on swings, and basically made them the enemies? Mm-hmm. Gone were the Osama bin Laden targets and the typical, if you will, caricatures of what most people would perceive as terrorists. That did something, you guys. That programmed an entire thought process that men are always been fair game, but women and children have become fair game. And what we see in the Middle East, that's why the spirit realm, these evil spirits, they show no mercy to children. Obviously, the Illuminati sacrifices them. They rape them. They turn them into sex slaves. They do every form of debauchery that I won't go into on the radio. You know, people, when Ted Gunderson was alive and others, they were talking about this stuff, but it just went over most people's backs. Then you get the British monarchy involved in pedophilia and the entire country of Great Britain covering up for, world-class pedophiles and leading to the highest ranks of American politics. Oprah Winfrey did a show. I think she showed 8 houses of prostitution for children that was taken off, and I don't even know that I think it was scrubbed from the net. But let me read this, because this is something that, again, Susan wrote. I believe this is a magnum opus. That's Latin for a large and important work of body of literature. I think it's that important. I don't say that to flatter her. I don't say that to flatter anyone. I fear God too much to flatter anyone. But listen to this. This should get into, Doug, what you and I first started years ago together in the HQ Intel Alert, trying to tell people what was going on up in New York and the area with all of the activity. But listen, this, I just want to quote and read this. DHS has labeled right-wing extremists a greater threat than the terror organizations called ISIS, who behead journalists and aid workers, kill Christians across the globe, burn a Jordanian pilot in a cage, then filmed it all and released the videos to the public. In 2013, it was reported that the Army training material listed evangelical Christians, now listen to this, Catholics, and some Jews as religious extremists alongside the Ku Klux Klan, Hamas, and Al-Qaeda. Remember the formula, ladies and gentlemen, IVND. Identify, vilify. Here's the vilification now. Nullification you're seeing, and destruction will follow. Perhaps one of the most disturbing visual examples of this type of targets our militarized police are being trained to take out comes from 2013 reports where it was revealed that law enforcement agencies were using actual targets that represented the threat of a pregnant woman and children. Doug, this broke my heart. I remember being on your show back then and just, pulling hair out and screaming to the point, not screaming, I don't know how to scream. I can't physically scream with my voice, but being as emphatic emotionally as I could get. But guess what? So the company that made the targets then said, we're sorry, we apologize. That's not the issue. The issue is what kind of monstrous, hedonous, absolute debauched creatures from hell slithering their way into our dimension would have people thinking that somehow a woman, and they make her holding a gun, it's probably because she's getting ready to be raped, and showing her in a nursery. These are all psychologically profiling and psychologically programming. Now, I ask you this. Haven't little kids been arrested holding toy guns? Haven't little kids been blown away holding toy guns? Haven't we had pregnant mothers killed by SWAT troops, or at least mothers killed in Washington, D.C.? You mean to tell me one 260-pound, fit as a fiddle, 6'6" guy can't basically pull a woman out of the car without blowing her brains out and however many rounds were fired into her body? I'm talking about the lady at the Capitol building. What's happening, you guys, and this is something that people have to understand, behind every dehumanizing, inhumanizing act or action is a demon, is a fallen angel. Behind every political, self-indulgent whore who's too busy with someone else's private parts to care about the country that made him great, that's as tactful as I know how to be. And oh, by the way, as someone who's written about ancient history to the degree I have, and who has basically chronicled and chronologically put things into their proper time frame, at least from a perspective I can justify with ancient writings, myths, and legends, it was the fallen angels that taught men how to even become sodomites in the first place. You might say it was a sexual preference of the fallen angels. I quote that in my book, Genesis 6 Giants. I think it was Diodorus who made that statement. He says it, and this may not be word for word, but it's close. He said, though they have comely female giants, the men prefer the pleasure of each other over that of their women. So, ladies and gentlemen, all of what we're seeing, the headlines are being written by principalities, powers, spiritual wickedness in heavenly places that are soon to come to earth. Jesus said, behold, I give you power to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. But you don't get that by whimpering. You don't get that by retreating. You don't get that by hanging out on blogs. You don't get that by basically, complaining to your equal complainant group. You get that boldness by spending time in the King. In other words, you must become a new creation. I must. I look for the day when old things pass away, all things become new. I hate my sin nature. I have one. I wish I didn't. I don't want it. I've asked the Lord, can't you just fix it so I don't free willingly sin? Can't you just take sin out of, and the bottom line is sin is a force, ladies and gentlemen. It's a power. And that's why to as many as receive him, Jesus gave us the power to become the sons of God. You can't fight it in your life. And to those of you who think that you're tougher, I'll say one word that'll bring the toughest man to his knees. Two words, biological weapon. It doesn't matter. Whatever your strength is, it's not good enough for the day. Whatever your skill set is, it's not good enough for the day. But God can teach your hands to war. God can teach your knees to war. God can teach you how to pray and how to take dominion over this stuff. And imprecatory prayer is what needs to be prayed for Kent Hovind. Literally, imprecatory prayer means, Lord, if they won't release him, then take the men and women who are being used by hell, remove them off the face of the earth. Are you asking God to take them off the face of the earth as in kill them? I'm asking God to remove them. I'm asking for the people of God to say, this is our brother. And I don't believe that Jesus was kidding when he's talking about his bride. I don't believe he's kidding when he's talking about his church. And the word church, I use the word, I don't mean the Catholic, Protestant, Jewish synagogue. I mean the ecclesia, the ones who are called out of the world unto him. Doesn't matter. I see two trees in the scripture, the olive tree, obviously, and the fig tree. Bottom line is Derek Prince has got a great teaching on the all and the fig and how God is the one that grafts them together. The people that simply want to blame the Jews or blame the this or blame the that don't understand. Of course there are false Jews. There are Jews that call themselves Jews and are not. There are Chinese who are not Jews, who are Taoists, who are under the influence of Lucifer. There are U.S. citizens that go to church, i.e., on a Sunday, pretending to be married, and they're as gay as geese, and they basically don't even, have any real relationships with their wives. They just live their separate lives, but they have what are called trophy wives just so they can get by with what they're doing. But God is seeing it. Greg, one of the things, too, that is amazing to me is the fact that one of the least popular things I've ever said in my entire radio career, or career calling, my time on the radio, I guess, is the fact that to actually be told that before America is destroyed, God's going to reveal the sins of the leaders to the people, and the people's sins before their God. And I submit, ladies and gentlemen, that did not happen until the Lord released that word, certainly. And the point is everybody said I was crazy because things weren't bad like they are now. Things weren't as developed for the plan of hell to be so played out right before your eyes. Yet, if people don't care, I understand that if they feel helpless, of course, you and I wake up knowing we're one man, you're a man, I'm a man, we've got what we have, but we also know we have the God of heaven on our side. And somebody once said, when God is with you, you're a majority. 1,000, one will chase 1,000, two will chase 10,000. The scripture I gave everybody tonight in Isaiah is really critical that you memorize. And so what will be the defining moment in your life? I'm speaking now to everyone out there. What will be the thing that you say, I will no longer go quietly into the night. I will no longer hold my tongue. I'll no longer care more about what people think than what God thinks. I'll no longer be afraid to lose my life, because in losing it, I'm going to gain it. I'm not talking about anyone taking their life through suicide. I want to make that clear. I'm saying that when you come to that attitude, you take on a whole different perspective. And again, the thing that is critical, as Greg read what God gave him, these men and women who have already laid down their lives, what they gave us was a time out of the battle. But now, while they gave the time out of the battle, it's no longer where a professional army will fight over there so the enemies won't come here. You are now the enemy, ladies and gentlemen, and the real enemies have been sanctioned. They're being financed. They're being given intel in real time. The point is that all the appointments in the current cabinet administration, they're all Muslims by their own faith and by their own testimonies. And I would say this, they couldn't be in that administration. And there is no such thing as non-militant Islam. There are Islamists who are not militant, but in their scope of beliefs, it ultimately boils down to this. They believe that they will live under a theocracy ruled by the Imam Mahdi and with the return of Muhammad. So the point is that they believe that, and they're willing to kill you. They're willing to butcher you. They're willing to burn you. They're willing to crucify. They're willing to do every heinous, horrible, wicked thing. And Greg, the ultimate slap in the face is that when God said his sheep became meat for all the predators, God wasn't just talking stories about, sheep and wolves. Our brethren have been butchered. They've been cut up. They've been sold in the meat marketplaces of the terrorists that the United States government funds. So, ladies and gentlemen, who's king? Is it Jesus or is it Washington? Because Washington is going to make sure that no one's going to go into the New World Order, as Barbara Marx Hubbard and others have stated, without the Luciferic initiation. David Spangler had made the statement, too, that under the New World Order, bottom line is it will be by what? Consent or by conquest, but make sure you understand this. They're talking, not me. There will be a New World Order. And unfortunately, the Bible says that it's given power, the beast is given power to make war on the saints. So shouldn't you, ladies and gentlemen, seek God for His battle plan for your life? Greg can't tell you what to do when that moment comes. I can't tell you what to do when that moment comes. We can tell you what we've decided to do, and we can share with you that will help others. But the fact is that you're going to have to be there when there's no one else for that. Doug, when you drew your little word picture and did a marvelous job, I don't think people can recognize, even rationalize, yet embrace emotionally. I know what it's like when my computer goes down. Obviously, I live on my computer because I'm posting stories. When the power goes out, when there's no communication, the first thing you want to do is run and call someone to make sure that their power's not out. The answer to that is, by the way, for those of you that have to stay in touch with family members, one of the best things you can do, and this is a pitch for an advertiser because I practice what I preach in this. I've told my stories, but satellite phones are a good thing to have, especially if the person that, is important enough for you to keep in contact with. But all communication, when they go down, they'll be jammed. And then everyone's left to that, I don't know what you call it, that pucker factor moment. You will either have a plan and you'll immediately respond based on your training, or you'll sit and wonder, oh me, oh my, and be like Alice in Wonderland, being disheveled with your thinking, being frightened by the events. And the lack of knowledge, meaning the lack of understanding what's going on, will drive most people simply wacky. And we've watched the supermarkets clear out. We've seen Venezuela now with lines standing, and now they're going to do fingerprint so people can't hoard. The bottom line is do what you can do. And people ask me now, what is the most important thing after getting your heart right with Jesus? Number one thing is this: get the food you can get, because with the drought, with the weather and the geoengineering taking place, I wrote a book about it. Weather Wars was way ahead of my time by the grace of God. I would recommend that to you. You can understand, if you make war on the most fertile part of the coastal plains, especially, and things like the valley, Central Valley in California, and you steer all of the rivers of water in the atmosphere away from them, you dry up the land, and then you come in and buy up the land. You get the land at a lot cheaper price because the productivity of a vineyard is multiple times of what it's worth only as land. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're under attack in every form, every fashion, every way, and while it does not yet appear, because the television's still on, Dancing with the Stars, and I think, probably Dancing with the Fallen Stars, and the word stars is angels. The city of Los Angeles, in my opinion, means the city of the lost angels, meaning the fallen angels. And if you look at the root, this is something that I want all of you to understand. If I could leave you with one scriptural understanding, it's this: look at the root of evil, then you can understand the fruit of evil. If you complain about the fruit of evil without never identifying the root of evil, it's like trying to treat one form of cancer when there's a specific area of your body that's feeding your entire body with cancer. So that's where we're at tonight, and that's what we're saying. The day will come, no communication, no gas, no ability to go. But remember this: the gangs and the wolves will already be planning for that day.